Jake Morrison looked out the window of his small ship as it flew toward the alien planet below. The world looked brown and dusty from space. Dead cities covered most of the land like scars on old skin. This was his first time meeting the Veltar people, and he was nervous. Captain Lisa Carter walked up behind him. She was a tough woman with short gray hair who had been flying ships between worlds for 20 years. "You sure about this, Jake?" she asked. "The reports say these bug people don't want help from anyone." Jake nodded. He was 35 years old and had spent most of his life studying alien species. He knew the Veltar were dying. A strange sickness had killed most of their people over the past 50 years. Only a few thousand were left alive on their home planet. "They need help," Jake said, "even if they don't want it." The ship landed near the capital city. Jake could see tall buildings that looked like they were made of crystal and metal. But many of them were broken or empty now. The streets that should have been full of people were mostly quiet. Jake put on his spacesuit and stepped outside. The air on this world could kill humans, so he needed the suit to breathe. He carried a bag with gifts and medical supplies. Captain Carter and 2 guards came with him. They walked through the empty streets toward the royal palace. The palace was huge, with towers that reached up toward the sky like fingers. But Jake could see cracks in the walls and broken windows. Even the most important building on the planet was falling apart. As they got closer to the palace, Jake saw his first living Veltar. The creature was about 7 feet tall with 6 legs and 4 arms. Its skin looked like it was made of dark green metal. Large compound eyes covered most of its head, and thin wings hung from its back like broken glass. The Veltar guard looked sick. Jake could see that parts of its skin had turned gray and were peeling off. The creature moved slowly, like each step hurt. This was what the sickness did to them. "Stop," the guard said in broken English. "Queen does not want to see humans." "I'm a diplomat," Jake said. "I have permission from the Galactic Council to meet with Queen Zarathex." The guard looked at Jake for a long time with its many eyes. Finally it turned and walked toward the palace doors. "Follow," it said. Inside the palace, Jake saw more signs of the dying civilization. Beautiful artwork covered the walls, but dust covered everything. The floors were made of smooth stone that once probably shined like mirrors. Now they were dull and cracked. More Veltar guards led them through long hallways. Jake counted only 12 guards in the whole palace. A healthy Veltar city would have had thousands of guards protecting their queen. They entered a huge room with a high ceiling. At the far end sat Queen Zarathex on a throne made of what looked like black crystal. She was the largest Veltar Jake had ever seen, almost 9 feet tall. Her wings were bigger than the others and had patterns of silver and gold. But she looked tired, and Jake could see gray patches on her skin too. "Your Majesty," Jake said, bowing his head. "I am Jake Morrison from Earth. I come to offer help to your people." Queen Zarathex stared at him with her compound eyes. When she spoke, her voice was deep and musical, but Jake could hear anger in it. "Another human who thinks he can save us," she said. "The Kethron tried to help us 10 years ago. We sent them away. The Altarian doctors came 5 years ago with their medicines. We sent them away too. What makes you think we want your help?" Jake stepped forward. "Because your people are dying, and we have technology that might be able to help them." The Queen's wings spread wide, a sign that she was getting angry. "We are Veltar. We have ruled this part of space for 3,000 years. We built cities when your people were still living in caves. We do not need help from anyone. But you're dying," Jake said quietly. "Then we will die with honor." Queen Zarathex stood up from her throne. "We will not live as beggars, taking charity from younger species who think they know better than us." Jake opened his bag and pulled out a small device. "This is a medical scanner. It can help us understand what's making your people sick. If we know what the problem is, maybe we can fix it." "No," the Queen said firmly. "I have heard these promises before. Other species come here, they study us like animals in a zoo, and then they leave when they get bored. We will not be your science project." "We're not like the others," Jake said. Humans don't give up on people. Queen Zarathex laughed, but it sounded bitter. Every species says they are different. Every species says they want to help. But when the help gets hard, when it takes too long, they always leave. Jake looked around the empty throne room. He thought about the dying guards and the broken city outside. These people needed help even if they were too proud to ask for it. What if we don't leave? He asked. The queen tilted her head. What do you mean? What if we stay here until we figure out how to help you? What if we don't give up even if you tell us to go away? For the first time, Queen Zarathex looked confused instead of angry. You cannot stay here without permission. This is our world. Then give us permission, Jake said. I will not. Jake nodded. Okay, but we're still not leaving. The queen stared at him for a long moment. No one had ever talked to her like this before. Other diplomats always left when she told them to. They followed the rules and respected her wishes. Guard, she called. 2 Veltar soldiers came into the room. Escort these humans back to their ship. Jake let the guards lead him out of the palace. But as they reached the doors, he turned back to the queen. We'll be camping outside your city, he called to her. If you change your mind, you know where to find us. Queen Zarathex watched him go, her compound eyes reflecting the light from the crystal walls. She had ruled her people for over a century, and no one had ever been so stubborn with her before. As Jake walked back through the empty streets to his ship, Captain Carter caught up with him. So what now? She asked. Do we go back to Earth and report that they don't want help? Jake shook his head and looked back at the palace towers. No, we set up camp. We're staying. Captain Carter sighed. She had worked with Jake before and knew that look on his face. Once Jake Morrison decided to help someone, nothing could change his mind. This is going to be a long assignment, she said. Jake smiled for the first time since landing on the planet. Yeah, it is. 3 weeks had passed since Jake Morrison set up his camp outside the Veltar capital city. Every morning, he woke up in his small research tent and looked toward the Crystal Palace in the distance. Every morning, he got back to work. Jake had built a small science station using equipment from his ship. He collected air samples, studied the soil, and watched the few Veltar who still moved through the streets. Captain Lisa Carter had flown back to get more supplies, leaving Jake with 2 guards and enough food for months. Dr. Amy Foster arrived on the 4th week. She was Jake's oldest friend and the best doctor he knew. Amy was small and blonde with green eyes that missed nothing. She had studied alien diseases for 15 years. You look terrible, Amy told Jake as she stepped off her transport ship. When was the last time you slept? Jake rubbed his tired eyes. I sleep enough. Look at what I found. He showed her a computer screen full of data. The sickness affects different types of Veltar in different ways. The workers get sick first, then the soldiers, then the nobles. The queen is the last to show symptoms. Amy studied the numbers. That's strange. Most diseases don't follow social classes like that. Exactly, Jake said. Natural diseases spread based on contact and biology, not on what job you have. This pattern suggests something else. Every day, Jake sent reports to Queen Zarathex. He left them at the palace gates with the guards. He knew she read them because sometimes the reports disappeared, but she never responded. On the 22nd day, Jake was collecting water samples from a stream near the city when he heard footsteps behind him. He turned around and saw Queen Zarathex standing there with 4 guards. She looked angry. You are still here, she said. It was not a question. Jake stood up slowly. Yes, Your Majesty, we're still here. I told you to leave. You did. But I don't follow orders from foreign rulers. I'm here as a representative of the Galactic Council and they want me to help your people. Queen Zarathex's wings trembled with anger. The Galactic Council cannot force me to accept help. No, Jake agreed. They can't. But they also can't force me to leave. The Queen stepped closer. Even with her sickness, she was much bigger than Jake and could have hurt him easily. But Jake didn't back away. Why? She demanded. Why don't you just leave me alone? I have told you we don't want your help. My people are dying and I cannot bear to watch you offer hope that I cannot accept. Why do you stay here and torture me with possibilities I cannot use? Her voice cracked on the last words. Jake realized that Queen Zarathex was not just angry. She was in pain. The proud ruler was watching her people die, and she felt helpless. Because giving up is not something humans do, Jake said quietly. When we see people who need help, we stay until we can help them. Even when they tell you to go away. Especially then. Usually when someone tells us to go away, it means they need help the most. Queen Zarathex stared at him with her compound eyes. That makes no sense. If someone doesn't want help, you should respect their wishes. Jake nodded. Maybe you're right. But let me tell you about my species. He sat down on a rock near the stream. A long time ago, humans lived in small groups. When danger came, we had a choice. We could run away and save ourselves, or we could stay together and fight. The humans who ran away lived longer, but they lived alone. The humans who stayed together were more likely to die, but if they survived, they had a family. What does this have to do with me? The queen asked, but she sat down on another rock to listen. Humans who stayed and fought had children. Humans who ran away died alone. After thousands of years, almost all humans were the type who stay and fight. We can't help it. When we see someone in trouble, something in our brains tells us to help them even if it's dangerous. Amy Foster walked over from the research station. She had been listening to the conversation. Jake's right, Your Majesty. Humans have a saying. We don't leave people behind. It's caused us a lot of problems over the years. Queen Zarathex looked at Amy. You are a doctor? I am. I've studied diseases that affect many different species. I might be able to help your people if you let me examine some of them. No, the queen said immediately. We will not be your test subjects. Then, let me examine you, Amy said. Just you. If I find something useful, you can decide what to do with the information. Queen Zarathex was quiet for a long time. Jake could see her thinking. Finally, she shook her head. I cannot. If my people saw me accepting help from aliens, they would lose respect for me. A queen must be strong. Being strong sometimes means doing things that are hard, Jake said, like asking for help when you need it. Easy words from someone who has never ruled a dying civilization, the queen snapped. Jake stood up. You're right. I don't know what it's like to be in your position, but I do know what it's like to watch people die when you might be able to save them. And I know I can't live with myself if I don't try. He walked back toward his research station. Amy followed him, leaving Queen Zarathex sitting by the stream with her guards. That night, Jake couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about the queen's words. She was trapped between her pride and her people's lives. She couldn't accept help because it would make her look weak, but she couldn't watch her people die without trying something. Around midnight, Jake heard a sound outside his tent. He looked out and saw a small Veltar standing in the shadows. It was not one of the queen's guards. Are you the human doctor? The Veltar whispered. I'm a scientist who studies living things, Jake said. The doctor is in the next tent. My daughter is sick, the Veltar said. She is only 5 years old. Please, can you help her? Jake looked back at Amy's tent, then at the Veltar parent. I can't promise anything, but we can try. The next morning, Queen Zarathex came to the camp again. This time she came alone. She found Jake and Amy working over a small Veltar child who was very sick. What is this? The queen demanded. The child's parent fell to the ground in front of the queen. Forgive me, Your Majesty. I brought my daughter to the humans without permission. She was dying and I didn't know what else to do. Queen Zarathex looked at the sick child, then at Jake and Amy. And? What did you find? Amy looked up from her medical scanner. The child has been poisoned. Something in her body is attacking her immune system, but it's not a natural disease. It looks artificial. Artificial? The queen asked. Made by someone, Jake explained. Your Majesty, I don't think your people are dying from a disease. I think someone is killing them on purpose. Queen, Zarathex's compound eyes went wide. She stared at the sick child, then at Jake and Amy. "That's impossible," she said, but her voice was uncertain. "We need to run more tests to be sure," Amy said. "But the pattern is all wrong for a natural sickness. Someone created this to kill your people slowly over many years." The Queen was silent for a long time. Finally, she spoke in a very quiet voice. "If this is true, if someone has been murdering my people for 50 years, then everything I believed about our honorable death is a lie." Jake nodded. "Yes, but it also means your people don't have to die. If someone made this poison, we might be able to make a cure." Queen Zarathex looked at him with an expression Jake couldn't read. Fear, anger, hope, and despair all mixed together in her alien features. "How long would you need?" she asked. "I don't know, maybe weeks, maybe months." "And you would stay here that long?" Jake smiled. "Your Majesty, we told you before. Humans don't give up on people. We'll stay as long as it takes." For the first time since Jake had met her, Queen Zarathex looked like she might cry. But instead, she stood up straight and spread her wings. "Very well," she said. "You have my permission to help us, but if you fail, if you make things worse, I will have you thrown off this planet." "Fair enough," Jake said. "But we won't fail." As the Queen walked away, Amy grabbed Jake's arm. "Are you sure about this?" she whispered. "If this really is poison, whoever made it might not want us to find a cure." Jake watched Queen Zarathex disappear into the morning mist. "I'm sure," he said. "Someone's been killing these people for 50 years. It's time to stop them." 2 months had passed since Queen Zarathex gave Jake permission to help her people. The human research camp had grown larger, with more scientists and medical equipment. Dr. Amy Foster worked day and night studying the poison that was killing the Veltar. Jake spent his time learning about Veltar history. He read old books and talked to the few remaining elders. What he found made his blood run cold. "Amy, you need to see this," Jake called from his computer. Amy looked tired. She had been awake for 30 hours straight studying blood samples. "What is it?" she asked, walking over to his desk. Jake pointed at the screen. "I found records of the last war between the Veltar and their enemies, the Skarl Empire. The war ended exactly 51 years ago, right when the sickness started," Amy said, suddenly wide awake. "Look at this." Jake showed her another file. The peace treaty was signed on a planet called Keth Prime. Both sides agreed to stop fighting and respect each other's borders, but look at who signed for the Skarl Empire. Amy read the name on the screen. General Vorthak, head of Biological Weapons Division. "Biological weapons," Jake repeated. "Amy, what if the Skarl didn't really want peace? What if they just wanted time for their weapon to work?" Amy stared at the screen. "You think they poisoned the Veltar during the peace talks?" It would make perfect sense. The Skarl were losing the war. Veltar ships were better, and Veltar soldiers were stronger. But if the Skarl could create a weapon that would kill all, the Veltar slowly over 50 years, they could just wait and take over empty Veltar worlds. Amy ran to her medical station and pulled up her test results. "Jake, look at this. I've been trying to understand how this poison works. It targets specific proteins that are only found in Veltar biology. No other species would be affected by it. A weapon designed to kill only Veltar," Jake said grimly. "And it's getting stronger. The poison adapts to whatever medicines the Veltar try to use against it. That's why their own doctors couldn't cure it. Every time they found something that worked, the poison changed." Jake and Amy worked through the night, checking and double-checking their findings. By morning, they were certain. The Veltar were not dying from a natural disease. They were being murdered by an enemy who had pretended to make peace with them. Jake requested a meeting with Queen Zarathex. She came to his camp with her usual guards, but Jake could see she looked weaker than before. The poison was affecting her too now. "Your Majesty," Jake began carefully, "we have discovered what is killing your people." "A cure?" she asked hopefully. "Not yet, but we know what the poison is and where it came from." Jake took a deep breath. "Your people are being murdered by the Skarl Empire. This poison was created as a biological weapon 51 years ago." Queen Zarathex stared at him for a long moment. Then her compound eyes began to glow with anger. The peace treaty, she whispered, was a lie, Jake confirmed. The Skarl signed a peace treaty so you would trust them. Then they poisoned your people and waited for you all to die so they could take your worlds. The Queen's wings spread wide, and she made a sound like breaking glass. It was the Veltar cry of rage. Her guard stepped back in fear. 50 years, she said, her voice shaking with fury. 50 years we have watched our people die thinking it was the will of nature. 50 years we have prepared for an honorable death when all along we were being murdered by cowards. Amy thinks she can create a cure, Jake said quickly, but it will take time and we'll need to work with your doctors. Queen Zarathex turned her burning gaze on him. How long? Maybe 6 months. Maybe longer. The poison is very complex. The Yao. Queen was quiet for a long time, thinking. Finally, she spoke in a voice that was hard as stone. Very well. You will have whatever you need. But first, we must warn the Galactic Council about the Skarl. If they did this to us, they might do it to other species. Jake nodded. I'll send a message to the Council immediately. But before he could return to his communications equipment, one of Amy's assistants came running over. Dr. Foster! Mr. Morrison! You need to see this right away. They followed the assistant to the edge of their camp, where a large telescope pointed toward space. The assistant pointed at the viewing screen. Ships, he said breathlessly. Lots of them coming this way. Jake looked through the telescope and felt his heart sink. Dozens of dark ships were moving toward the Veltar system. They were still far away, but they were definitely coming. Skarl ships, Queen Zarathex said quietly behind them. She had followed them to the telescope. They know we discovered the truth. How could they know? Amy asked. Jake's blood went cold as he realized the answer. Someone told them. Someone's been watching us and reporting back to the Skarl. They all looked around the camp suspiciously. Jake's team was small, only 12 humans. But the Veltar, helpers who brought them food and supplies numbered in the dozens. Your Majesty, Jake said carefully, how many of your people know what we've discovered? Only my closest advisors, the Queen replied. Then her eyes widened. Unless, she didn't finish the sentence, but Jake understood. There was a spy among the Veltar. Someone had been working with the Skarl all along, making sure the poisoning continued and that no one found a cure. Commander Rex Hayes arrived 3 hours later with a small human fleet. Rex was a military man with gray hair and hard eyes who had fought in several wars. He took one look at the approaching Skarl ships and started giving orders. How long until they get here? He asked Jake. The computer says 4 days, maybe 5. And how many ships? At least 60, maybe more. Rex whistled low. We've got 12 ships. Good ships, but 12 against 60 isn't great odds. Queen. Zarathex stepped forward. Commander, my people may be dying, but we can still fight. Veltar ships are fast, and our pilots know these star systems better than anyone. How many ships do you have? Rex asked. The Queen's compound eyes dimmed. 8 that can still fly. Most of our pilots are dead. Rex did the math in his head. 20 ships against 60. Still not good, but better. There's something else, Jake said. Someone among the Veltar has been working with the Skarl. They know everything we've discovered, and they know we're close to a cure. A spy, Rex said grimly. That means they might know our battle plans too. Amy spoke up from her medical station. I can have the cure ready in 48 hours if I work, nonstop. But I need to test it first, and if there's a spy, they might try to stop me. Jake looked around at the faces surrounding him. Humans, Veltar, and somewhere among them, a traitor who had been helping to murder an entire species. We need to find the spy before the Skarl arrive, Jake said. And we need to get that cure finished. Queen Zarathex drew herself up to her full height. Then we will do both. But first I must ask you something, Jake Morrison. What's that, Your Majesty? You came here to save my people. Now you might die fighting our battles. Why would you do this? Why would humans risk their lives for aliens they barely know? Jake looked at the approaching Scarl fleet on the telescope screen, then at Queen Zarathex. "Because that's what friends do," he said simply. "And somewhere along the way, you became our friends." The Queen stared at him for a moment, then made a sound Jake had never heard before. It was soft and musical, completely different from her usual harsh tones. "What was that sound?" he asked. "That," Queen Zarathex said, "was the Veltar word for thank you. It is not a word we use very often." Commander Rex cleared his throat. "This is all very nice, but we've got 4 days to prepare for a battle, find a spy, and cure an entire species of a bioweapon. I suggest we get started." As the sun set over the Veltar capital, Jake looked up at the stars and wondered if they would all still be alive in a week. The Scarl were coming to finish what they had started 50 years ago. But they hadn't counted on one thing. They hadn't counted on humans who don't know how to give up. The next 4 days would determine whether the Veltar species lived or died. And Jake Morrison had no intention of letting his new friends down. Amy called out from her lab station. "Jake, I think I've got it. The cure. It's working in the test samples." Jake smiled grimly. They had a cure, they had ships, and they had 4 days. It would have to be enough. "Let's get to work," he said. The cure worked, but it came with a price Queen Zarathex hadn't expected. Dr. Amy Foster had finished the medicine just 12 hours before the Scarl fleet arrived. The first Veltar to receive it was a dying child who could barely breathe. Within minutes, the gray patches on her skin began to fade. Within an hour, she was sitting up and asking for food. But when Queen Zarathex saw her people getting better, she also saw something else. They were angry. 50 years of believing they were dying with honor had been replaced with the knowledge that they were victims of murder. "My queen," said Elder Kethvar, one of her oldest advisors, "the people want revenge. They want to fight, the Scarl, even if it means death." Queen Zarathex stood in her throne room looking stronger than she had in months. The cure was working on her too, but her heart felt heavy with the weight of command. "How many of our people are healthy enough to fight?" she asked. 300 warriors, Kethvar replied. "Not enough to crew our ships properly, but enough to make the Scarl pay for what they've done." Outside the palace, Jake Morrison was having his own difficult conversation with Commander Rex Hayes. The human military officer was studying battle plans on his computer. "The Scarl have us outnumbered 3-1, Rex said. "Our ships are better, but not that much better. We need an advantage." "What kind of advantage?" Jake asked. "Intelligence, battle plans, something to even the odds." Rex looked at Jake seriously. "We still haven't found your spy. For all we know, the Scarl already know everything we're planning." Amy Foster joined them, looking exhausted but happy. "The cure is working perfectly. I've treated 200 Veltar, and they're all getting better. But Jake, there's something strange." "What?" "The Veltar who recovered first are the ones who were sickest. It's like the poison made them stronger somehow once it was removed." Jake thought about this. Maybe the Scarl didn't plan on anyone surviving long enough to develop immunity. The Veltar who lived this long might be the strongest of their species. Before Amy could respond, Queen Zarathex entered the human camp with a group of her warriors. They all looked healthier than Jake had ever seen them, but their compound eyes burned with anger. "Commander Hayes," the Queen said formally. "I wish to discuss battle strategy." Rex nodded. "Of course, Your Majesty. What did you have in mind?" "My people want to fight the Scarl directly. Ship to ship, warrior to warrior. It is the Veltar way." Rex frowned. "With respect, Your Majesty, that's exactly what the Scarl expect. They outnumber us badly. A direct fight is suicide." "Then what do you suggest?" Jake stepped forward. "What if we don't fight them the way either of our species normally fights? What if we combine human tactics with Veltar abilities?" Both Queen Zarathex and Commander Rex looked at him with interest. "What do you mean?" the Queen asked. Jake pointed to the sky where the approaching Scarl fleet was now visible as moving stars. "Veltar can communicate with each other telepathically, right? Through your hive mind connection?" "Yes, but only over short distances. Human ships have communication technology that works over long distances. What if we put Veltar pilots on human ships? Your people could coordinate our entire fleet instantly, while our technology lets you talk to ships anywhere in the battle, Commander. Rex's eyes lit up. Instant communication across the entire battlefield. No delays, no confusion, perfect coordination. Queen Zarathex considered this. It could work, but my people have never flown human ships before. We have 18 hours to teach them, Jake said. It won't be perfect, but it might be enough. The next several hours were chaos. Human pilots worked with Veltar warriors, trying to teach alien flying techniques in less than a day. The Veltar learned quickly, but their methods were very different from human ones. Don't think about flying the ship, human pilot Danny Brooks told a Veltar warrior named Sektoth. Feel where it wants to go, then guide it there. This makes no sense, Sektoth replied, his forearms struggling with the human controls. Ships are machines, not living things. Maybe, Danny said, but the best human pilots treat them like living things anyway. Jake spent the training time doing something else. He was still looking for the Skarl spy among the Veltar. With Amy's help, he had created a fake message about a secret weakness in the human ships. They gave different versions of this message to different Veltar groups, then watched to see which version the Skarl would prepare for. 6 hours before the battle, they got their answer. The Skarl fleet changed formation in a way that showed they believed the fake message that had been given to Elder Kethvar's group. Jake felt sick when he realized what this meant. It's someone close to the Queen, he told Amy and Commander Rex. Someone who has access to all the important information. Could it be the Queen herself? Rex asked quietly. Jake shook his head. No. She's been trying to save her people this whole time, but someone in her inner circle has been betraying them for years. Amy looked worried. Jake, if there's a spy that close to the Queen, they might try to sabotage the battle at the worst possible moment. Before Jake could answer, alarms began ringing throughout the camp. The Skarl fleet had arrived. Commander Rex ran to his command ship, shouting orders to his crew. Queen Zarathex gathered her warriors and headed for the Veltar ships. Jake and Amy were supposed to stay on the planet's surface where it was safe, but Jake had other ideas. I'm going with them, he told Amy. You're not a pilot or a warrior, she protested. No, but I might be the only one who can identify the spy when they make their move. Jake ran to catch up with Queen Zarathex as she boarded her flagship. The Galm ship was beautiful, made of the same crystal material as Veltar buildings, but shaped like a giant insect with folded wings. You should not be here, the Queen told him as he climbed aboard. Someone close to you is working with the enemy, Jake said breathlessly. I need to be here to stop them when they try to sabotage the battle. Queen Zarathex stared at him with her compound eyes. You think one of my advisors is a traitor? I know one of them is. The Queen was quiet for a moment. Then she nodded. Very well. But stay out of the way. This will be dangerous enough without worrying about keeping a human alive. The battle began as soon as the combined human-Veltar fleet left the planet's atmosphere. The Skarl ships were dark and angular, like flying daggers made of black metal. They moved in perfect formation, clearly expecting an easy victory over the few remaining defenders. But the Skarl had not expected what they found. The human ships moved like no human fleet had ever moved before. Instead of following predictable patterns, they flowed through space like a school of fish, each ship knowing exactly where every other ship would be. The Veltar hive-mind connection, amplified by human communication technology, made the entire fleet act like a single organism. Sektoth reports enemy formation breaking on the left flank. Queen Zarathex called out to her crew. Danny Brooks is moving to exploit the gap. Jake watched in amazement as ships on opposite sides of the battle coordinated attacks with split-second timing. Human weapons and Veltar maneuvers combined in ways that confused the Skarl commanders completely. But the enemy was adapting quickly. Skarl ships began targeting the vessels with mixed crews first, trying to break the coordination that made the defense so effective. They're learning our tactics. Commander Rex's voice came through the communication system. We need to change strategy. That's when the betrayal came. Elder Kethvar, who was serving as the Queen's tactical advisor, suddenly grabbed a communication device and began transmitting information to the Skarl fleet. "New human formation incoming from Vector 7, he shouted into the device. "Target their command ship." Jake didn't think. He jumped on the Elder Veltar, trying to stop the transmission. But Kethvar was much larger and stronger, even weakened by years of poison. "You." Queen Zarathex turned on her advisor with fury in her compound eyes. "You have been helping them kill us." "I was trying to save us," Kethvar shouted back. "The Skarl promised me they would spare a few thousand Veltar to serve them. I thought it was better than extinction." "You fool," the Queen raged. "You believed the lies of murderers." The battle around them was getting worse. Skarl ships were now targeting the Queen's flagship directly, guided by the information Kethvar had given them. Jake rolled away from the fighting Veltar and grabbed the communication device. Instead of turning it off, he had a different idea. "All Skarl ships," he said into the transmitter. "This is the human fleet commander. We surrender. Repeat, we surrender. Stop your attack and prepare to accept our surrender." For a moment, the Skarl ships slowed down, confused by the message. In that moment of hesitation, Commander Rex's voice cut through the communication system. "All ships, attack now. They're confused. Hit them with everything." The combined fleet struck the Skarl like a hammer. Ships that had been preparing to accept surrender were caught completely off guard by a coordinated assault from every angle. Within minutes, half the Skarl fleet was destroyed or disabled. The remaining enemy ships tried to retreat, but the human Veltar coordination was too good. Ships pursued the fleeing Skarl with perfect timing, cutting off escape routes and destroying stragglers. When the battle ended, only 12 Skarl ships had escaped. The rest were floating wreckage in space around the Veltar homeworld. Queen Zarathex stood over the. 6 months later, Jake Morrison stood on the balcony of the rebuilt Veltar Palace and watched the city below. The streets that had been empty and quiet were now full of life. Veltar workers moved between buildings, repairing damage and constructing new homes. The sound of their voices filled the air like music. Dr. Amy Foster had cured all of the remaining Veltar people. The poison that had killed so many was now just a bad memory. But more than that, the Veltar population was growing, again. The first children born after the cure were healthy and strong, with no trace of the Skarl weapon in their blood. "It's amazing how quickly they've recovered," Amy said, joining Jake on the balcony. She looked tired but happy. For the past 6 months, she had been working with Veltar doctors to make sure the cure worked perfectly. "They're a strong species," Jake replied. "They just needed a chance to show it." Queen Zarathex approached them from inside the palace. She looked completely different from the sick, desperate ruler Jake had first met. Her compound eyes were bright. Her wings shined with health, and when she moved, it was with the confidence of someone who knew her people would live. "Jake Morrison," she said formally. "The Galactic Council has sent word. They want to make you an official ambassador to the Veltar people." Jake laughed. "I don't think I'm the ambassador type. I prefer working directly with people instead of sitting in meetings." "That is exactly why they want you," the Queen said. "You have shown that the best diplomacy happens when people help each other, not when they make speeches about helping each other." Amy smiled. "Jake, you should take the job. Someone needs to teach other diplomats how to be as stubborn as you are." "Stubborn?" Jake pretended to be offended. "I prefer the word persistent." Queen Zarathex made the soft, musical sound that meant she was amused. Over the past months, Jake had learned to read many Veltar emotions. The Queen was not the cold, formal ruler she had seemed to be at first. Under the royal dignity, she was curious, intelligent, and surprisingly funny. "There is something I have been wanting to ask you," she said to Jake. "Something I have wondered about since the day we first met." "What's that?" "Why do humans do what you do? Why don't you give up on people even when they tell you to leave them alone?" Jake had been expecting this question for months. He had thought about it many times while watching the Veltar rebuild their civilization. "Can I tell you a story about human history?" he asked. The Queen nodded and settled down to listen. Amy sat nearby, also curious to hear Jake's answer. "A long time ago," Jake began, Before humans had spaceships or even knew there were other planets with life, we lived on a world that was very dangerous. There were big predators, terrible storms, diseases that killed many people, and wars between different human groups. Most species have such histories, Queen Zarathex observed. True, but humans had a problem that made everything worse. We were not the strongest or the fastest animals on our world. We didn't have thick skin like some creatures, or poison like others, or claws and teeth like the predators. If a human was alone and got in trouble, that human usually died. Jake looked out at the busy Veltar city below. So humans learned to work together. When one person was in trouble, the others would help, even if it was dangerous. When someone got sick, the group would take care of them. When enemies attacked, everyone would fight together. That seems logical, the Queen said. It was logical, but it was also more than that. Over thousands of years, the humans who cared about others lived longer and had more children than the humans who only cared about themselves. The caring humans taught their children to help people. The selfish humans often died alone. Amy nodded. It became part of human nature. We can't help caring about others, even when it would be smarter to walk away. But that still doesn't explain why you help aliens, Queen Zarathex said. My people were not part of your tribe. We were not even the same species. Jake was quiet for a moment, thinking about how to explain something that he didn't fully understand himself. I think, he said slowly, it's because humans are afraid. Afraid? The Queen sounded surprised. You do not seem afraid. Not afraid of dying or getting hurt, Jake explained. Afraid of being alone. When humans first left our world and found that there were other intelligent species in the galaxy, we were excited but also terrified. What if we were the only ones who cared about helping others? What if the rest of the galaxy was full of species who would hurt us or ignore us when we needed help? Jake pointed to the Veltar workers in the street below. When I met your people, I saw that you were dying, and I thought, what if someday humans are dying and need help? Would anyone care enough to stay and help us the way we're helping you? So you help others because you hope they will help you? The Queen asked. No, Jake said firmly. We help others because we're afraid they won't. We're afraid that if we don't show the galaxy how to care about each other, then when humans are in trouble someday, we'll be alone. Queen Zarathex stared at him with her compound eyes. You help people because you are afraid of not being helped? We help people because we can't stand the idea of anyone being alone when they need help, Amy said quietly. It's not about getting something back. It's about making sure that caring exists in the universe. The Queen was silent for a long time, thinking about this. Finally, she spoke. That is the most beautiful and the most terrifying thing I have ever heard. Terrifying? Jake asked. You will never be safe, she explained. As long as there are people in the galaxy who need help, humans will try to help them. Even when it's dangerous, even when those people don't want help, even when helping them might destroy you. You cannot stop yourselves. Jake nodded. You're probably right. But I can't imagine living any other way. Queen Zarathex stood up and walked to the edge of the balcony. She looked out at her people, busy rebuilding their world and their lives. The Galactic Council has made a decision about the Skarl Empire, she said. They have been declared war criminals. Their government has been disbanded, and their leaders are being put on trial. Good, Amy said firmly. But there is something else, the Queen continued. The Skarl people themselves, the ordinary citizens who were not part of the military or the government, they are suffering. Their economy has collapsed, and many of them are starving. Jake felt a familiar tightness in his chest. You're asking if we should help them. I am not asking. I am telling you that 3 human relief ships left Earth yesterday, carrying food and medical supplies for Skarl refugee camps. Jake stared at her. How do you know that? Queen Zarathex made her amused sound again. Because I have been studying humans for 6 months. I knew that once you learned there were Skarl people in need, you would not be able to ignore them, even though their species tried to kill mine. Are you angry about that? Amy asked. No, the Queen said. I am amazed by it, and I have decided that the Veltar will send ships to help with the Skarl relief effort. Jake and Amy both stared at her in shock. Your Majesty, Jake said, the Skarl tried to wipe out your entire species. The Skarl government and military tried to wipe us out, she corrected. The Skarl people are just individuals trying to survive, like anyone else. If I let innocent people suffer because of what their leaders did, how am I different from the humans who helped us? Jake felt a strange mixture of pride and worry. You're becoming more human than some humans. No, Queen Zarathek said. I am becoming more myself. But I learned from watching humans that being yourself sometimes means doing things that seem impossible. Over the following weeks, Jake watched as Veltar and human ships worked together to deliver aid to former Skarl worlds. It was strange to see the victims of genocide helping to feed the children of their would-be killers. But it was also exactly what Jake had come to expect from both species. Captain Lisa Carter visited the Veltar homeworld one last time before returning to Earth. She found Jake in his office, reading reports from the Skarl relief mission. So, she said, sitting down across from his desk. Ready to come home? Jake looked up from his computer. Actually, I'm thinking of staying here for a while longer. The Veltar are interested in joining human exploration missions. They want to help us find other species that might need assistance. Lisa laughed. You know what that means, right? You're creating a whole galaxy of species that think like humans. Species that won't give up on each other. Is that a bad thing? No, Lisa said thoughtfully. But it's going to make the universe a very different place. A place where nobody has to face their problems alone. Jake looked out the window at the rebuilt Veltar city, then at the stars beyond. Somewhere out there were more species that might need help, more civilizations facing problems they couldn't solve by themselves. Yeah, he said with a smile. It is. 3 months later, the first joint human Veltar exploration ship launched from the rebuilt Veltar homeworld. Its mission was simple. Find people who needed help and don't give up until you've helped them. Queen Zarathek stood with Jake as they watched the ship disappear into hyperspace. Do you think we'll succeed? She asked. Can we really teach the galaxy to care about each other the way humans do? Jake thought about all the species they had yet to meet, all the problems they had yet to solve, all the people they had yet to help. I don't know, he said, Han.